We spend billions every year on supplements that are mostly just expensive packaging. And right now, growing through the cracks in your driveway, there are plants with actual peer-reviewed chemistry that outperform half of what's on those shelves. Not folklore, not wishful thinking, clinical evidence. The reason nobody told you about them is simple. You can't patent a weed. Today, we're going through 20 of them, what they actually do inside your body, and why the post-World War II push for sterile lawns quietly erased 1,000 years of working botanical knowledge. Number 1, dandelion. Start with Taraxacum officinale, the dandelion, because it makes the strongest case for everything we're talking about today. The leaves carry more beta-carotene than carrots, and more calcium than milk by weight, and that's before you even get to the root. The root is where the real work happens. It contains sesquiterpene lactones, which are the compounds that make dandelion taste bitter, and that bitterness isn't a flaw in the plant. It's the mechanism. Those compounds trigger bile production the same way pharmaceutical cholagogues do, which are drugs doctors prescribe specifically to get your liver and gallbladder moving. The leaves work differently. They're high enough in potassium that when they pull fluid out through the kidneys, they replace the electrolytes at the same time. A prescription diuretic does the opposite. The root also contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, and the white latex in the stem shows antimicrobial activity against skin pathogens. Before the 1940s, people seeded dandelions into lawns on purpose. The herbicide industry needed a villain. Dandelion was everywhere and looked untidy, and that was enough to rewrite 400 years of agricultural common sense. Number 2, purslane. Portulaca oleracea, purslane, is the fleshy, low-growing plant cracking through your sidewalk that most gardeners pull without a second thought. That's a mistake, because purslane has one of the highest concentrations of omega-3 fatty acids ever measured in a land plant. We spend real money on fish oil capsules to get ALA into our diet, and purslane delivers it in amounts that rival flaxseed. It also carries vitamin E, vitamin C, glutathione, and beta-carotene in the same leaves, so you're getting antioxidants alongside omega-3s in a single source, which is actually harder to find than most people realize. The plant's also mucilaginous, meaning it produces a mild gel when you eat it raw or cook it, and that quality soothes irritated digestive tissue directly. Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cuisines never lost track of this. Purslane's been a staple in Greek and Lebanese cooking for centuries because it works, and it's there. From a practical standpoint, it thrives in dry, compacted, nutrient-poor soil where most crops would fail, so it's available exactly when other fresh greens aren't. You can eat it raw, sauté it like spinach, or pickle it, stems and all. Number 3, plantain, broadleaf. Plantago major follows human foot traffic so reliably that Native Americans called it white man's footprint, because European settlers carried its seeds everywhere they walked, and it sprouted in every disturbed patch of soil behind them. It's probably growing through your driveway right now. For centuries, the standard response to a sting, cut, or bite was to chew a plantain leaf and press it directly onto the wound. That sounds like folk medicine until you look at what's actually in the leaf. It contains allantoin, the same compound that dermatology companies now put in commercial wound care products specifically because it promotes cell growth and tissue repair, and aucubin, an iridoid glycoside with documented anti-inflammatory activity, plus tannins that tighten and protect damaged tissue. The mucilage in the leaf is what makes the poultice work so well, because it creates a physical barrier over the wound while those compounds do their job underneath. That's a delivery mechanism, and it's a genuinely good one. Internally, the same mucilage soothes irritated mucous membranes, which is why plantain tea works for respiratory irritation, and why psyllium, a close botanical relative, is the active ingredient in Metamucil. Number 4, chickweed. Stellaria media, chickweed, spreads so fast and smothers so completely that most gardeners treat it like a genuine crisis. What they don't realize is that the same aggressive biology driving that spread also loads the plant with saponins, compounds that both clean and soothe irritated tissue at the same time. Applied as a fresh poultice or a cooled tea compress, chickweed pulls heat out of inflamed skin, and that's not just a sensory cooling effect. The saponins are actively reducing the inflammatory response at the tissue level, which is why European folk medicine reached for it consistently for eczema, psoriasis, and minor burns for hundreds of years. Internally, those same demulcent compounds coat the throat lining when you drink chickweed tea, creating a thin protective film that reduces the friction, triggering a dry, persistent cough. Nutritionally, it's also worth eating raw in salads or cooked as a green with decent vitamin C, magnesium, and potassium content. It stays evergreen through winter under dense cover when almost nothing else is available. One identification note: confirm it by the single line of fine hairs running along the stem, switching sides at each leaf node. Watch for scarlet pimpernel, Anagallis arvensis, as a toxic lookalike with square stems and red flowers. Number 5. Lamb's quarters. Chenopodium album. Lamb's quarters grows aggressively in vegetable gardens and competes hard with whatever you actually planted, so most gardeners pull it on site. Run a nutritional comparison against the spinach you bought at the store though, and the weed wins on almost every metric. More calcium, more iron, more protein per gram, and an amino acid profile that's unusual for a leafy plant. It's a close botanical relative of quinoa and amaranth, both of which get sold as premium ancient grains. Lamb's quarters is essentially the wild ancestor of those crops, growing for free in your disturbed soil without any input from you. Archaeologists have pulled lamb's quarters seeds from Neolithic sites across North America and Europe. This wasn't a fringe survival food. It was a staple that industrial agriculture simply stopped selecting for because you can't build a commodity market around something that grows everywhere without help. Young leaves work raw, mature leaves cook down like spinach, and the seeds can be ground into flour. The one real consideration is oxalic acid, which lamb's quarters shares with spinach and chard. So cooking is the right move, and people with kidney issues should be aware of that. Number 6, nettle. Stinging nettle. Urtica dioica, stinging nettle, defends itself with tiny hollow hairs that work like hypodermic needles, injecting formic acid, histamine, and acetylcholine directly into your skin on contact. It burns, it welts, and most people walk away with a strong opinion about the plant. Cook it or dry it though, and all of that chemistry breaks down completely, and what's left is one of the most nutritionally dense plants growing in a northern climate. Dried nettle is high in iron, calcium, magnesium, and vitamins A and K, so the mineral profile alone puts most commercial supplements to shame. But the more interesting clinical story is systemic. Root extracts have been studied for prostate health, where compounds appear to interfere with sex hormone-binding globulin activity. Leaf extracts show anti-inflammatory activity comparable to over-the-counter antihistamines for seasonal allergies. There's also urtication, the old practice of deliberately pressing fresh nettle against arthritic joints. Clinical trials have actually looked at this because the mechanism is real. The injected compounds trigger localized circulation and reduce chronic inflammation through a counter-irritant effect. Harvest young spring growth before flowering, use gloves, and dry it thoroughly before storing. Number 7. Yellow dock. Rumex crispus yellow dock has a deep taproot that stains your hands orange the moment you cut it. That color comes from anthraquinone glycosides, compounds that have driven its use as a digestive and liver tonic for centuries, and they work by stimulating bile production the same way dandelion does. But the iron story is what makes yellow dock different from most plants on this list. The root delivers bioavailable iron and simultaneously improves the conditions your body needs to absorb it, because better bile flow means better fat-soluble nutrient absorption across the board. That's a different mechanism than swallowing an iron tablet and hoping for the best. Traditional herbalists classify it as an alterative, meaning it gradually restores normal function to eliminatory tissues like the liver and lymphatic system, which is why it's still used for chronic skin conditions on the theory that clearing internal congestion reduces what shows up on the skin. There's also a simple field use. Crushed dock stem rubbed onto a fresh nettle sting neutralizes the formic acid fast. The root is what you want for internal use. Harvested in fall when the concentration peaks. Number 8. Burdock. Arctium lapa, burdock, is the plant responsible for those round, spiky burrs that cover your clothes and your dog after a fall walk. A Swiss engineer studied those burrs under a microscope in 1941, noticed the tiny hooks gripping every fiber they touched, and invented Velcro. That's a real story, And the root that grew those burrs is just as interesting. That root pushes 3 feet down into the soil, pulling minerals from subsoil layers that shallow-rooted plants never reach. In Japan, it's called gobo and eaten as a standard vegetable. European herbalists used it for lymphatic support and chronic skin conditions for centuries, working on the theory that flushing the lymphatic and urinary systems from the inside reduces what eventually shows up on the skin. The root contains inulin for gut bacteria, along with polyacetylenes and sesquiterpene lactones that show antibacterial and anti-inflammatory activity in lab studies. The leaves are large enough to wrap around a limb and work as a topical poultice for rashes and skin inflammation. Harvesting takes real work. You need a long, narrow spade and patience because the root snaps if you pull at the wrong angle, and first-year plants give you the best quality. Number 9, cleavers. Galium aparine cleavers is the plant currently stuck to your socks. Those tiny hooked hairs covering every stem and leaf are why it clings to fabric, fur, and anything else it touches. And that same plant, packed into cold water overnight, is one of the most consistently used lymphatic herbs in traditional Western medicine. Your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. It moves fluid through muscle contraction and pressure. So when you spend a winter barely moving, lymph drainage slows down, nodes swell, and immune response gets sluggish. Cleavers has a long documented history of supporting that drainage through its diuretic and lymphagogue action, with iridoids and tannins doing the work. But here's the preparation detail that most people miss. Heat destroys the active compounds. You don't boil cleavers. You pack fresh plant material into cold water, leave it overnight, and drink it the next day. That cold infusion is the preparation that actually delivers the chemistry. Spring is when cleavers is most potent, which lines up exactly with when lymphatic congestion from winter is most common. To identify it reliably, look for leaves arranged in whorls of 5 around each stem node. Number 10, red clover. Trifolium pratans, red clover, grows in every unmowed field and roadside verge across the temperate world. Farmers plant it to fix nitrogen. Bees rely on it. And the flowers contain isoflavones, specifically forminonetin and biochanin A, that bind to estrogen receptors in ways that multiple clinical trials have now examined seriously. Isoflavones are phytoestrogens, so they produce a much weaker response than your body's own estrogen. In people with low estrogen, they provide mild supplementation. In people with high estrogen, they have a mild blocking effect. That dual action is what makes the research complicated, because the outcome depends heavily on where your hormones are starting from. Clinical trials on red clover isoflavone extracts for hot flashes and bone density in postmenopausal women show modest but consistent results. The plant also contains coumarins with blood-thinning properties, so if you're on anticoagulant medication, that's a real interaction worth discussing with your doctor. Beyond the hormonal chemistry, red clover flowers are expectorant and work well for dry, irritated coughs. The tea has a mild, slightly sweet flavor that's easy to drink regularly. Pharmaceutical companies have tried to isolate and patent the active isoflavones. The whole plant, growing free in any unmowed field, does the same job. Number 11, wood sorrel. Oxalis acetosella, wood sorrel, looks exactly like a shamrock and tastes like a sour candy. That sharp, citrusy bite comes from oxalic acid and vitamin C working together, and people across the world were chewing this plant long before citrus fruit ever reached them. Scurvy killed people in pre-modern Europe, mostly in late winter when fresh food ran out. Wood sorrel is one of the first plants to push up in early spring, so its vitamin C content showed up at exactly the moment people needed it most. Foraging knowledge wasn't random. It got built around real seasonal gaps in nutrition. The sour flavor also does something mechanical. It triggers saliva and gastric secretion the moment it hits your tongue, which primes your digestive system before a meal and settles nausea. Now, the oxalic acid that creates that sourness does carry a caution. Large amounts can contribute to kidney stone formation in people who are already susceptible. A handful in a salad or used as a garnish isn't a meaningful concern for most people. Wood sorrel grows in lawns, under trees, through sidewalk cracks, and it's available from early spring through late fall. Number 12, shepherd's purse. Capsella bursapastoris, shepherd's purse, gets its name from those small triangular seed pods that look like the pouches medieval shepherds wore on their belts. It grows in garden edges, cracked pavement, and disturbed soil on every continent. And it's been called soldier's woundwort in traditional European medicine for a reason. It stops bleeding. The mechanism is vasoconstriction and smooth muscle contraction, driven by oxytocin-like peptides and tyramine in the plant tissue. Those compounds squeeze blood vessels down and slow blood flow fast. That's also why shepherd's purse has been used across centuries for heavy menstrual bleeding and postpartum hemorrhage. And what's striking is that European herbalists, Chinese medicine practitioners, and Native American healers all landed on the same use independently. The tannins add an astringent effect on top of that, and the plant also carries vitamin K, which your body uses directly in the clotting process. So you've got multiple mechanisms running at once. Do not use this plant during pregnancy. The same smooth muscle action that stops bleeding will trigger uterine contractions, and that's a real risk, not a theoretical one. Number 13, mugwort. Artemisia vulgaris, mugwort, shows up in Anglo-Saxon medical texts as the mother of all herbs, sits at the center of traditional Chinese medicine through moxibustion, and gets used across Asia, Europe, and the Americas for digestive complaints, menstrual regulation, and nervous system support. That kind of cross-cultural agreement across thousands of years isn't coincidence. The active chemistry starts with thujone, a volatile compound that's neurotoxic at high doses and acts as a mild nervine at low ones, meaning it nudges your nervous system toward calm rather than overstimulation. Mugwort also contains ardabsin and absinthin, bitter sesquiterpene lactones that trigger digestive secretions through the same bitter receptor mechanism we saw in dandelion, plus quercetin and luteolin with anti-inflammatory activity. The moxibustion research is worth taking seriously. Clinical trials on burning dried mugwort near specific acupuncture points to reposition breech babies in late pregnancy showed results better than standard expectant management. That's a specific testable outcome that peer-reviewed literature has actually examined. Don't use this plant during pregnancy, and don't use it in high doses. The absinthe comparison exists for a reason, because Artemisia absinthium, mugwort's close relative, drove real neurological damage at the concentrations people were consuming. Number 14, mallow. Malva neglecta grows in your gravel driveway and through sidewalk cracks, and most people pull it without a second thought. It's in the same plant family as marshmallow root, hibiscus, and okra, and like all of them, it produces mucilage, a thick gel that coats and soothes whatever tissue it touches. That mucilage is the whole story with mallow. When it reaches your throat, esophagus, stomach lining, or intestinal wall, it lays down a physical barrier over the inflamed tissue and holds it there while the irritation settles underneath. That's exactly why marshmallow root gets used for gastritis, acid reflux, and irritable bowel. Mallow does the same job, and it's growing free in your driveway. The leaves work raw in salads or cooked as a green. The flowers are mild and slightly mucilaginous, and the small round seed pods, called cheeses because of their shape, are edible with a pleasant mild flavor. Topically, a mallow poultice soothes insect stings and skin inflammation through that same protective coating action, with anti-inflammatory flavonoids adding to the effect. The reason it got forgotten is simple. Mucilage doesn't survive industrial processing, so there's no way to put it in a bottle and mark it up. Number 15, ground ivy, creeping Charlie. Glaucoma heteracea, creeping Charlie, spreads through your lawn in a way that makes people reach for the herbicide without thinking twice. Crush a leaf, though, and that strong, sharp smell tells you something useful. This plant is loaded with volatile oils, and those oils are what make it work for chest congestion. The two main compounds, pulegone and menthone, act as expectorants, meaning they thin mucus in your bronchial passages and help your body clear it out. Ground ivy also contains ursolic acid with documented anti-inflammatory activity, plus tannins that tighten irritated mucosal tissue. British Navy sailors relied on it as an anti-scurvy provision before citrus became standard, because the vitamin C content was high enough to do the job reliably on long voyages. When you brew it, cover the cup while it steeps for 5 to 10 minutes. Those volatile oils will evaporate straight out of an open mug, and then you've lost the whole point. That's not tradition for tradition's sake. It's basic chemistry. Keep used to a cup or two during an acute illness. Pulegone is hepatotoxic at high doses, so long-term daily use without breaks isn't the move. Number 16. Amaranth, wild pigweed. Amaranthus retroflexus pigweed grows in every compacted, disturbed garden bed you've got, and the cultivated versions of this exact plant get sold at a premium as ancient grains in health food stores. The wild version is nutritionally nearly identical. What makes amaranth different from most plants on this list is the protein story. It's one of the few plant sources that carries all 9 essential amino acids, including lysine, which is the amino acid most grain-based diets run short on. The leaves are also edible and high in iron, calcium, and vitamins, so you're getting a complete protein grain and a nutritious leafy green from the same plant you've been pulling out of your garden beds. Spanish colonizers deliberately suppressed amaranth cultivation across the Americas specifically to break indigenous food systems, replacing it with Old World crops. That suppression is why it disappeared from mainstream food culture, not because it failed as a crop. Young leaves work raw or cooked. Mature seeds can be dried and used as grain or ground into flour, and a single plant produces them in enormous quantities if you harvest at the right time. Number 17. Wild lettuce. Lactuca virosa wild lettuce bleeds white latex when you cut the stem, and that sap spent most of the 1800s sitting in pharmacies under the name lactucarium, prescribed by physicians as a sedative and pain reliever before synthetic alternatives existed. Then pharmaceutical companies developed compounds they could patent, and wild lettuce quietly disappeared from the medical conversation. The active compounds are lactucin and lactucopacrin, sesquiterpene lactones that show analgesic and sedative activity in animal studies. The mechanism runs through GABA receptor modulation, which is the same pathway benzodiazepines use to produce their calming effect. Don't let the lettuce opium nickname mislead you. There are no opioid compounds in this plant, and the effect is mild to moderate, genuinely useful for tension headaches, light insomnia, and anxiety, but nowhere near opioid territory. To identify it, look for a plant much taller and more bitter than garden lettuce, with prickly leaf margins and that white sap when the stem breaks. Preparation is straightforward. Dry the aerial parts and brew a bitter tea. The reason it's not in your medicine cabinet isn't that it doesn't work. Number 18. Horsetail. Equisetum arvens, horsetail, has been growing on this planet for 300 million years. Its ancestors were the size of trees and dominated forests that eventually became the coal seams we mine today. The modern version grows in wet ditches and disturbed ground, and it carries more silica than any plant you're likely to find in a temperate yard. Silica doesn't show up on standard nutrition panels, so most people don't think about it as a nutrient at all. But your body uses it to build collagen, form bone matrix, and hold connective tissue together. Deficiency shows up as brittle nails, weak hair, and poor wound healing, and horsetail addresses all three through the same mechanism. Preparation matters with this one. Simmering the dried plant extracts silica more fully than a simple steep, because the plant material is tough enough that hot water alone doesn't pull everything out. One real caution: raw horsetail contains thiaminase, an enzyme that depletes vitamin B1 with heavy use over time. Drying and heat destroy it, so properly prepared tea doesn't carry that risk, but eating the raw plant in quantity does. Number 19, self-heal. Prunella. Prunella vulgaris, self-heal, grows flat against the ground in maintained lawns, pushes up small purple flower spikes through mowed grass, and has been used for wound care across European, Asian, and Native American traditions independently. That kind of cross-cultural agreement isn't coincidence. It's a signal worth following. The plant contains 2 compounds that work together in a way that's genuinely useful. Rosmarinic acid, a polyphenol, reduces inflammation and carries antiviral activity that researchers have been studying closely for its action against herpes simplex virus. Ursolic acid, the same compound we saw in ground ivy, drives tissue repair and regeneration underneath that anti-inflammatory effect. So while one compound settles the irritation, the other rebuilds the tissue. Clinical trials on topical self-heal preparations for cold sores show results that compete directly with pharmaceutical topical antivirals. You can eat it too. Young leaves work raw in a salad or cooked as a pot herb, with a mild, slightly bitter flavor that's not hard to get down. Dried, it makes a decent herby tea. Modern clinical trials have confirmed what medieval wound dressers already knew. The name isn't marketing. It's a description. Number 20, yarrow. Achillea millefolium yarrow carries its origin story in the name itself. Achilles, according to the legend, used it to treat wounded soldiers at Troy. That's mythology. But the underlying claim is documented across so many independent cultures and time periods that it's one of the most consistent wound care plants in recorded history. Ancient physicians kept it in every serious herb garden, and medieval soldiers carried it specifically for cuts and bleeding. The chemistry backs the reputation. Yarrow contains acetylene, an alkaloid with documented hemostatic activity, along with sesquiterpene lactones that promote clotting and tissue contraction. When you process the plant, it also produces azulene, a volatile compound with anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. So the wound healing story isn't just tradition. It's identifiable compounds doing specific jobs. Yarrow also acts as a diaphoretic, meaning it promotes sweating, which is how it's been used for fevers across both European and Native American medicine. The approach is different from suppressing a fever with drugs. It works with the body's temperature response instead of against it. Identification is straightforward. Finely divided, feathery leaves and flat-topped clusters of small white or pink flowers.